You're listening to the House Hacking Podcast, the blueprint for one of the best financial life hacks there is. House hacking. If you are looking to get ahead financially or learn about the easiest way to get started with real estate investing, then you are in the right place. Stay tuned and join a community of individuals from all walks of life that use house hacking to eliminate their housing costs and accelerating their path to financial independence. Your number one place for all things house hacking.
Josh and Allie, thank you so much for being on the show. I'm excited that you're here with us. I mean, we've been wanting to get a couple on for quite a while, but I mean, before we dive in too much, how you doing? Where are you dialing in from? Tell us a little bit about how you're doing this week.
Doing good. We're super excited to be here. We are doing good today. We are from upstate New York.
Yeah.
Super excited to be on the show today.
Yeah. Thanks for having us.
Yeah.
Yeah, awesome. So are you guys already getting snow in upstate New York?
Yeah, we got a little bit. So right now, upstate New York is kind of a funky time. So a week ago, it was like 10 degrees outside. We had snow on the cars, dusting them off. Fast forward a week, it's been 73 degrees for 4 days straight. It feels like the middle of September
like
right now.
T-shirt weather.
Yeah. So,
wow.
So we're all over the place weather-wise.
Yeah.
Real seasons. Yeah, down in New Orleans, we're still hot and humid for another
good.
couple of weeks. All right, so for folks that don't know you, I mean, let's just start off. What's a high-level summary of your house hacking experience? Because you guys have really just got into house hacking very recently and already moving on to sort of a second deal. So just give us that high-level overview of your experience, and then we'll dive in after that.
Yeah, I would say so. In 2018, Allie and I got married, and shortly thereafter, we kind of became abundantly clear of what type of financial debt we were in from student loans.
Mm-hmm.
So we started trying to find the best way to get out of that debt. We read a couple books, read a couple articles, and realized that house hacking was a way that maybe we could improve our financial situation. So we got married in August, took a little 3-day break, came back in September, and we started looking for our first deal. Closed on that first house hack in 2018, have learned a ton in the 2 years since doing that, and then actually just closed on our second house hack back in September.
Oh, awesome. All right, so where'd you guys meet? How long were you dating before you got married? Because you're still fairly newlyweds, 2 years right now.
Oh, yeah. So Josh and I met in college. We were both the same major. We actually transferred into the same major the same semester.
Yep.
So it was actually funny that way. Josh was one of 3 men in our major, so he was pretty easy to find. We were friends for years, both saw each other through different relationships, and just that friendship grew. And then post-college, started dating.
About 3 years, yeah. I had always known I kind of wanted to date Allie, and if I ever got the chance, I wasn't going to waste much time. And so she had just started her master's program, so we were in no way, shape, or form ready to get married.
Right.
So I popped the question, and then figured we get through a master's program, maybe we'd be both in careers by the time we got married.
Mm-hmm.
So we had an extended, a very long engagement. It also gave us a lot of time to really learn about each other, though.
Yeah. So we've been together for like 7 years now. But we're together for 5 years when we got married and when we bought our first house hack.
Yep.
Awesome. All right. So, when y'all were out of college and starting getting serious, did you have like the financial knowledge, or did that not really click until, hey, we're married, let's start looking at the bigger picture of things?
Yeah, I would say probably 2017. So Allie graduated from her master's in 2017, and right about that time we started talking about, okay, so I was working full-time in management. She was about to launch into a career, and then we just kind of started realizing we have almost $100,000 in student loans, and we hadn't really talked about finance a whole lot up until that point, and we weren't really aware of our situation. It was really right around 2017 when we became abundantly clear of the position we were in.
And I think too, like, it wasn't necessarily we weren't talking about finances. I think in a lot of ways we were making some poor financial decisions and flat out ignoring finances. Yeah. It was that, like, I'm going to swipe my card and not check my debit card account and hope there's a balance. Like, that's where I was in grad school. So, I mean, we had a roommate. We were living in a tiny apartment in the city. Once I got my job, we got apartment just for the two of us. But yeah, it was a huge transformation for us. And I think moving in just the two of us led to that discussion of merging your bank accounts, all of that kind of stuff that we hadn't considered before. And that kind of prompted that dialogue. And
a quick funny story. So I had a really bad habit of financing very expensive cars, and I would just roll negative equity into negative equity. And where the rubber met the road kind of thing was I was sitting in the finance department of a car dealership. And the guy looked at my credit score and my debt to income, and he's like, I can't sell you this car. But he had a copy of Dave Ramsey's Total Money Makeover on his desk. And I think he was a part of like Financial Peace University. He's like, I can't sell you this car. I can give you this book though. Have you heard of Dave Ramsey? And at that time I was like, I don't care about this guy. I just want this car.
Yeah.
Lo and behold, that Total Money Makeover actually really kind of got us talking about personal finance and in a way changed our life. But in that moment, I was just annoyed he was giving me this book.
Yeah. I mean, that's so funny though. The finance guy at a car dealership, not like when you think of car dealers and car dealership sales guys, that's not what you typically think of. But that's so funny that he gave you the book.
Yep.
Yeah.
Awesome. All right. So now you're getting married. Did you knew you wanted to buy a house right away, or were you guys renting a place?
We were renting. We had moved because my job would have been a further commute. So we moved so I only had a 40-minute commute to work. And we were renting a tiny one-bedroom apartment for $1,200 a month. And buying a house wasn't something on our radar at all. Like, I knew it was this like long-term, let's buy a nice house situation, but it was not on our radar.
No. And once we became more and more aware of our financial situation, that became even harder to conceptualize how in the world we'd have $100,000 student loans, plus we still had car payments at the time. And then the idea of buying a really expensive, even just starter home in our area, we really couldn't make sense of it, but we also did not want to continue to pay rent. So we didn't know what to do right away.
Yeah.
And did you actually know what house hacking was? I mean, 2017, 2018, it was starting to get out there a little bit, but was it still the concept foreign, or did you actually stumble across an article or something that talked about house hacking?
Yeah, so it was kind of fortuitous timing in a way, being 2017. So found the book from Dave Ramsey, started learning about personal finance through that regard. And then Brandon Turner actually came out with an article years ago of how to hack your housing and get paid to live for free. Found that article, and that was where the term kind of came into our life, the notion of house hacking. And then an author I really like, Scott Trench, published a book called Set for Life. And through that, he kind of really walked you through step by step how to do it. And the more that I learned about it and kind of did that back of the envelope math, I was like, we can't afford not to do this. I didn't know how we would do it, but that's how I became aware of it.
All right. So how'd this conversation go with you, Allie? Is it, hey, I just heard about this crazy thing on the internet? I mean, or were you pretty open to this? I mean, just share a little bit of how that conversation went.
No, like if you could be negative open to a concept, that's what I was. I was so vehemently opposed to this. When Josh is the type of person where he loves podcasts. He devours podcasts. He's on the road a lot. He's listening to 7 or 8 podcasts a day. So he is gaining all of this knowledge really, really quickly. He's running through these books, all of these things. And then he just comes to me and is like, so I want to buy a multifamily home and be landlords, and I want to reduce our expenses, and I want to get rid of our car payments. And I'm like, do you want to ruin my life?
Yeah.
That was the first thought.
He's going 100 miles an hour and like,
and we weren't even married yet. So she was.
And honestly, so I'm a social worker. So like learning about mental health and all of that. So I'm hearing all these things and I'm like, is he okay?
Yeah. Like, who's in it? Is something
I'm literally
happening?
like, this is like, he's losing it, right? So little by little, Josh worked to expose me to it. And at first it was like, he was showing me numbers and spreadsheets and look what it can do. I didn't care.
Nope.
I wasn't the numbers person. I was like, cool, this spreadsheet's so awesome, Josh. But what really hooked me, one, he's a very persistent human, as am I, which is a strength in a relationship that can also cause some friction. But he started speaking my language.
Yeah.
And what I mean by that is the numbers in the beginning weren't the hook, but the emotions were. So when he started talking about quality of life changes now and 10 years from now, that's what got me. I'm a sentimental person. This meant more time with our family, more time freedom, everything. So I think eventually we really got on the same page, but in the beginning, no, it was a tough sell.
I mean,
Yeah.
talk about a like great little golden nugget that just slipped out right there is the language that you talk to each other in. For him, it was the numbers and the spreadsheets, and for you, didn't mean anything. It was, that quality of life and the emotion thing. I think that's a brilliant tip that, folks, if you're trying to convince that partner, that spouse to get on board with house hacking or just real estate investing or any relationship thing, is make sure you're conveying it in a way that they really understand. So, I mean, you said the quality of life now and in 10 years, did you think the quality of life was going to be less or maybe worse initially than what you had at that 1-bedroom apartment that you were renting?
Yeah, I would say for us, initially we had thought, well, in order to do that, so we found the concept of house hacking. Eventually, we committed to this is what we are going to do. So we had never heard of a multi-family property. Whenever I thought apartments, we'd lived in apartments, and they were all these really big buildings. So once we discovered that apartments aren't always in big buildings, but it could be a duplex, a triplex, or a quad, we started the notion of driving for dollars, right? So we started driving around neighborhoods, and we started seeing more and more places that we realized we really didn't want to live there. So at first, our mindset was it's going to be a down, and this is where I really had to try to persuade her, is it's going to be a downgrade in terms of quality of life. We're not going to love living there, but it's going to save us so much money and set us up for success down the road. And so I think at first we felt a little dismayed, honestly, because we're not really going to like living there, but the numbers are going to be so good.
Yeah.
And to kind of add off on that, like this is again speaking separate languages, which caused some friction. So for Josh, he was so stuck in his Excel sheet. Yeah. He's like, Allie, I crunched the numbers on this property. It is going to be amazing. We're going to get cash flow from living in it, like all these things, right? Yeah, I researched and there were 2 murders on that street last week. And I'm like, you want me to sleep here and feel safe? So like he was really taking us to some nasty properties that we had no business looking at, people slamming the door in our face. Our realtors like, do you want to collect rent from them? And Josh was like, yes, I do. The numbers work.
Yeah.
So it was marrying those 2 frames of thinking. What am I trying to say? You know what I'm trying to say.
And I'll tell you, I mean, so again, we weren't married yet, and we were getting closer to that. Even her parents started really questioning, like, what are you trying to get our daughter into?
Yeah.
Right.
When we were showing some of the places that they had seen, and quickly they realized, this guy's maybe a little crazy.
All right, so let's talk about this first property, the first house hack. How long did it take you to find it? And then when you found it, what made you say, like, this is the property?
Yeah. So all in all, I would say it took us 3 months to find it. Like I said, we got married, went away for 3 days, came back in the beginning of September. We ended up closing the week of Christmas.
Okay. So just a couple months you found it. And what Allie, what made this one, obviously it had to hit some of the numbers to get Josh to be happy, but what for you made it be like, yes, this is a place that I can live in?
So a lot of the properties we were looking at radically impacted our quality of life, whether it was the condition of the property or the neighborhood. We went from living in a nice, clean, pristine, 1-bedroom apartment, and we were looking at these places that I was like, I would not feel comfortable. So for this one, it was an off-market deal. Our realtor was able to connect us to. It was a young couple that had a baby, and they were school teachers, and they had lived there for 7 years, and they did a lot of work, and clearly, because they were owner occupying it themselves, they put a lot of TLC into that property. So for me, I was like, wow, like this is a really nice place to live. I feel comfortable. And, we're in a city, and I'm like, and it has off-street parking. Like, you sold me. I don't parallel park.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I think that really we got a great opportunity, but
Decent area, off-street parking, and then good quality inside.
Well, and that was the thing. Like when we started out, it seemed like A, B were the only options. Either we way overpay for a place where I can't make sense of the numbers at all.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And then I'm like, why are we really doing this? Or it was the numbers on paper look great, but we don't feel safe being here after hours. It didn't seem like there was an option B. And so when we came across this property and got to learn more about this couple, it seemed like a really happy medium.
Mhm.
Perfect. All right. So then what was the purchase price of the property?
It was 158,000.
And then multifamily, how many bedrooms and bathrooms, units, all that good stuff.
Yeah. So it was a duplex, 3-bedroom, 1-bath downstairs, 2-bedroom, 1-bath upstairs. And the unit we actually occupied, I feel like we made out like bandits because it had a large fenced-in private backyard, very large driveway, a 1-car garage.
Mhm.
I would say our quality of life actually kind of went up, ironically.
Yeah. It was a really lovely home to live in.
Yeah.
Awesome. And then did you live in the 2-bedroom or the 3-bedroom?
3-bedroom, 1-bath.
Awesome. All right. So you bought it at 158. What type of loan program did you do? The terms that you got, down payment?
We did a 5% conventional loan for the house. And our down payment was, what is that?
14,200, and that
Yeah.
includes closing costs as well.
Mhm.
Okay. And then what did your payment end up being on the property?
1384.
And did that include your taxes and insurance as well?
All in PITI.
So
Awesome.
with that property, we inherited a long-term tenant. He had lived there for 4 years. Definitely was not at market rent, but he worked 2 jobs and was never home and was such a very nice person, respectful tenant. So we were like, we're new at this. We're going to keep this guy here. He's paying his rent on time. Great. So that's kind of where we were at with that.
And what was he paying?
750.
$750. Okay, so you're in this for what, $700 a month, give or take $650, somewhere right in there, and you went from paying $1,200 for a 1-bedroom to now cut that in half for a 3-bedroom, 1-bathroom, off-street parking, fenced-in yard, and a garage. That doesn't sound like a sacrifice
No.
at all.
No.
Yeah,
Awesome.
no, I think we made out like bandits. And then once we kind of started like annualizing that, and we realized that that's just the way, as is, or back then was almost $6,000 a year in savings. And we both work in human services, and we knew that neither one of us, reasonably speaking, through hard work and effort, we're going to be able to give ourselves a $6,000 a year pay raise. And in one instant, we just got a $6,000 pay raise. And that's really when it became real for us.
Mhm.
Yeah. Awesome. So now you're obviously on to the second house hack, but before we get there really quick, is that same tenant still in there that was upstairs?
So he's actually not. He was there for a year, and then he got married and, wanted to move in with his partner, of course. So he gave us 60 days. There were some updates that needed to be done in the unit, just some cosmetic stuff. We put in a new heating system. And after we did that, we were able to raise rent to $925. So that was probably for 6 months before we moved out, really.
Yep.
So that adjusted the numbers also for us.
Yeah. So now you're like $500 is what it was costing you to live there. So even better. And how much money did you have to put into that unit to sort of get it rent ready for that higher rent?
Yeah, I think it ended up being about $4,500. It was mainly appliances. So we put in a new heating system. We put in a new dishwasher. Did a lot of cosmetic updates, things like that. Improved flooring in the unit.
Awesome. And then, so this, $6,000 you sort of saved in that first year. What'd you do with the $6,000? Did you go buy another car that you couldn't get before, or, how'd you end up spending that money?
Don't let me forget. I have a really funny story to tell you about how we crash hacked our way out of car debt. But our priority one, like I said before, was how can we get out from underneath 6 figures in student loans as expeditiously as possible.
Mm-hmm.
So we bought the property the week of Christmas, celebrated a little bit, and then January 1st, it was, we need to pay off student loan debt. So
Right.
every penny from all the savings in conjunction with everything that we were working on in our jobs was just paying off student loans.
Awesome. And had you been listening to enough real estate related podcasts or reading articles where you knew about putting money aside for reserves for the property, or had that not sort of
Absolutely.
clicked yet? Okay. And
Yep.
what was your initial goal that you tried to have set aside for the property for reserves?
So our big thing is because we were also saving really aggressively from our work income, was having what the mortgage was, PITI, we like to have about 3 months. So it worked out to be a little over about $5,000 or $6,000 in reserves. Every now and then, if either there was a vacancy or not a vacancy, if there was a maintenance or something we needed to repair, we'd tap into that a little bit and then replenish it. But we usually would keep, between $5,000 and $6,000, or at least 3 months or so of the total PITI at all times.
Gotcha. And then Allie, since Josh is the more numbers guy, did he just sort of pick the numbers, or and you'd say, hey, this sounds great, or did you have some say in this?
I think in the beginning, this was insane trust between us.
Yeah.
Like
Insane trust?
This was, insane trust. I may have been insane though. But I think there was just so much trust in this. I knew that he did his research. I knew that I didn't understand half of it. And I was like, I'm going to go with it. What is the worst that's going to happen? Let's just try this. So in the beginning, it was really Josh pushing through with these numbers. I knew he did his homework and all of that stuff, But now I'd like to say I'm way more involved, on board, and I drank the proverbial Kool-Aid. I'm all about it. I want to do another house hack after this. So
Awesome.
absolutely, yeah.
All right, so how'd that conversation go? Who brought it up to do the second one?
I would say it was probably still me.
You.
Yeah.
It was for sure him. We were in this lovely apartment. I was just getting settled. We were there for 1.5 years. I'm like, life is good. And Josh is like, okay, I'm ready to do it again. And I was like, are you kidding me? So it was kind of just like, I booked us a showing to go see this property. I'm like, what? So Josh is really the one who has these really awesome ideas, and he definitely keeps the ball moving. I think if it was up to me, we'd probably still be there, but that's not necessarily a good thing. I think we balance each other so well, and that like he's like the go go go, I'm the whoa whoa whoa, and we meet somewhere in between,
And I think you need that, right? I mean, for a relationship, and it changes back and forth, where some folks will be stuck in a comfort zone and you need your partner to help pull you out. And then sometimes you need the person that's a little more conservative to sort of rein you in a little bit. And you get, like you said, you end up with this really good balance if you can figure out that dance.
Absolutely.
Exactly
Yeah.
it,
And for me, I mean, having read those articles, the goal was always get paid to live for free. And I was super excited about what we had accomplished in just a year at our first house hack. But at the end of the day, we still hadn't checked that box yet.
Mm-hmm.
And so that was always, I'm very much like goal oriented. And so I knew I wanted to get to that, $0 a month housing cost. So I kind of knew like, this is where I wanted to go. But now I had a whole year of data to show Allie, like, this is real, this can work.
Right.
Awesome. Yeah. And, two things I just want to call out is, there's this, I don't know what you quite want to call it, I guess, miss or negative connotation with house hacking is one is it has to be a sacrifice.
Right.
And it generally isn't. I mean, sometimes it is. And, it hasn't been for me and my wife. Clearly in this situation, it wasn't. And then, the second thing is there that, it's not a good house hack unless you're at zero or pocketing money every month. But
Right.
if you can save $6,000 a year on your housing costs, I mean, that pays down debt, that maxes out an IRA. To me, that is a win. And if you can do that, reduce your housing costs any amount, that can help get you ahead financially.
Oh, absolutely. I couldn't agree more.
All right. So Josh showed up and said, hey, we have a showing. Did you end up buying that house, or did that just sort of start the whole, okay, we're actually going to start looking again for another property?
Yeah, like I think what Josh does is he just like, proposes something, and I kind of feel like I'm getting thrown into it. And then I'm like, okay, my feet are wet. Like, let's keep moving on it. So, we saw a couple properties. They were not a good fit for us, but I feel like it kind of normalized that notion to me. I need a little time to warm up to new ideas, whereas Josh is like, let's jump into it. So, it ended up being where we live in a certain neighborhood. Josh is incredibly good with networking. We are very active community members. We go to community meetings and, he's talking to local agents. So we're making it known that we're looking for another property. And we ended up knowing someone in the neighborhood that wanted to sell their duplex. And what happened? We were doing repairs on our current duplex. We're painting. The guy walks by and he's like, oh, you're getting the apartment ready. We're talking. And then Josh was like, yeah, we're in the market for a new one if you know anyone. And then he was like, yeah, I actually think I want to sell mine. So again, just like awesome.
Talk about the power of networking, right?
Yeah. And what I would say too is none of that was an accident. This same guy a year ago, because we walk the neighborhood, we like to make sure people know who we are and everything. We always admired the duplex, actually the one we're doing this from in. I met him one time at a meeting and kind of planted that seed. And at that juncture in his life, he said, I don't know if I'll ever sell that property. I put a lot of work into it. It's really in great shape. The numbers are solid. So these are all things I'd like to hear. I don't think I'll ever sell that property. And I said, well, if anything ever changes, just let us know. And fast forward a year, and his situation had changed. And I made sure that we were the first person he talked to.
Yeah. Talk about persistence, right? You just really nicely staying top of mind, and then life changed and he was ready to sell. All right. So let's get to some numbers on this one. What was the purchase price on it? How many units was it? Bed and bath, all of that good stuff.
Yeah. So it's another duplex up, down. We paid $150,000 for it.
So less than the previous one.
Correct. Yeah. And this was actually completely off market. So there were no realtors involved. We just had our attorneys. And this was actually our first time, our first duplex. A realtor was involved and he did help facilitate a lot of the kind of behind the scenes part of the transaction. Most people don't really understand happen.
Right.
This was our first foray. We did soup to nuts the entire process other than what our attorney did for us. So that was a really good learning opportunity. But it is a 3-bedroom bath, 1 bath upstairs, 3-bedroom, 1 bath downstairs. Again, off-street parking. That's a must.
Yeah. Awesome. And then how'd you finance this one?
Yeah. So we used an FHA for this one, 3.5% down. Between down payment and closing, this was $13,200.
So not bad at all. And I'm guessing, so this 13,000 you came up with just from savings from your jobs and then savings from your reduced housing costs.
Correct.
Awesome. And then what was your PITI, all in mortgage payment on this one?
$1,280.
Okay. So rates came down a little bit why it's a little cheaper.
2 years ago, we bought at 4.87%. We locked this in 30-year for 2.7.
Oh, wow. All right. You move out of your old one. The guy upstairs is paying almost $1,000. What'd you rent the downstairs for, that 3-1?
We rented it for $1,350, which was awesome. We got another really nice guy in there, pays his rent early. Couldn't be happier with that.
So you're grossing what, like $2,200 something a month, and your PITI's $1,384?
Yep.
So you're cash flowing before maintenance and CapEx and vacancy, a nice chunk of change. And are you still self-managing that property?
Yeah, what's nice is it's only 4 houses up the street.
Yeah.
But we tried to be real intentional. I had spoken to a lot more experienced investors in some of my networking meetings, and they had shared with me that when they were younger, they bought properties all over the place, but that as their lives got more complicated, it became a lot harder for them to self-manage.
Yeah.
So we really tried to buy hyper-local, kind of thinking of our future selves eventually as we have a family, our life gets busier. So yeah, the houses are almost right next to each other.
Awesome. And then were both units for the new property occupied? Did you have to move out a tenant, or was one of them empty where you could move in right away?
So for the new property, we have the top unit was occupied and their lease didn't expire until, sometime in 2021. But the bottom unit, those folks were buying a home. So it actually worked out perfectly where the unit was vacant. We could move in. It was pretty ambitious of us because we had how long of a turnaround? Before we closed on this property, we already got a tenant for the unit
Yeah.
we were currently living in. And I think we gave ourselves, like, from closing to moving into this property, maybe a 1 week window, which was incredibly stressful because this unit was not ready to be moved into, but we had no other choice. So we did it. So yeah, if I could do it again, maybe I would have given us a little longer of a window, but it all worked out. So it's fine.
I was super ambitious about that one too.
Yeah. So we blame Josh for that window is what you're saying.
Fine. Okay.
Most of the time it works out though, but no, this was a it was a stressful 2 weeks because we also had to get that apartment fully rent-ready, clean, sanitized, move all of our stuff down here. This current unit that we're in, we've done a lot of work in the last 2 weeks, but it was habitable, but it was not comfortable.
And then what was the upstairs tenant paying at this new place?
$975.
$975. All right. So now, you had your housing costs were $500-600 a month, down from $1,200. Here, you're what, $300, $305 basically is what you brought your housing costs down to?
Yeah.
Yeah. And realistically, market rent, I'm guessing, is actually a little bit higher than the $975.
Yeah, about $1,100.
Okay. And then downstairs, how much money did you have to put into getting that unit ready for you guys to live in it?
So we did replace the flooring. The people who lived here prior to us had a cat and 3 ferrets, and they smoked. And we were waking up every morning with, like, headaches, congestion. The smell was really bad, even after professional cleaning. So I think we hired professional cleaners and steam cleaners, and that honestly was probably about $500, and it didn't put a dent in it. So we had to rip the floors up. The new flooring was about $1,000 all in, maybe a little more because we
about
paid
$1,300 between labor and materials.
And do you guys do the work yourself on the flooring, or did you hire it out?
Yeah.
We did hire it out. We had a guy that would put it in for us for $2 a square foot. And honestly, it was a bandwidth thing. There were so many things going on in that moment. It's like, we could buckle down and take the day or two to do this flooring, or we could hire it out and it's one less thing that we have to worry about. So for us, paying it was well worth, preserving our sanity.
Well, sometimes I think we try to, real estate investors, especially early on, they try to be so frugal, they don't realize that it's cheaper sometimes to pay a professional to do it that can do it in half the time that you could. And then you can spend that time with family, with friends, relaxing, or in a job that's actually paying you more money versus the, $2 a square foot that you would save. So yeah, I agree with that 100%.
Andrew, I'm so glad that you said that because I think there's a lot of people who are way handier than Allie and I.
A lot of people.
And we tried initially to try to fit that round peg into a square hole where, well, this is what everyone else does. So clearly we have to be handy. And while there are some things I think we can do, I think the quicker we realize what our strengths are, and exactly what you're describing, what is the highest and best use of our time? Is it learning how to lay flooring? Maybe it's not. And we were also both very busy in our careers and things like that. Right. And so it just made a lot more sense. And it saved us so much headache.
I know. And, there's some folks that get ahead really well with doing the work on their own. And I definitely don't want to knock it. And especially when, you're early on in that investing career and you don't have the extra cash, sometimes that's what you have to do. And I did a lot of that work myself early on as well. But there definitely has that point where you just have to balance it out. And sometimes, even if it's a break even when you're looking at doing it yourself or paying someone else, just to save on your sanity sometimes makes it worthwhile to hire it out. Awesome. So what work did you have to do with the old unit that you were living in, or was it pretty much good to go? You just had to do a little bit of touch up paint and get it cleaned.
Yep.
That was pretty much it. Yeah. I mean, we were living there, so any updates I was doing gradually while we were there. So it was pretty much ready to go.
Yep. Some fresh paint and a deep clean.
Awesome. And now, what are you guys doing between these two properties? You've got some good cash flow from the last one. You're not cash flow positive on this one currently, but you should be pretty close to it once you raise those rents over a time period. What are you setting aside for maintenance? Are you setting aside anything? Are you thinking about CapEx stuff like roof or siding or windows, big things like that?
Yeah, so it's funny you mentioned windows. So we are actually in the process of replacing 13 windows. And we had no concept of how much windows cost when we bought the property, and then after getting a lot of different bids, we're in that like $6,000 to $7,000 range. And so because we knew we weren't going to be the people necessarily swinging the hammer, we came into this property along with enough to buy the property with several $1,000s in cash reserves, thinking we had an understanding for how much capex there was going to be. So we're pretty conservative in the sense that we still carry that 3-month cash reserve for our former property steadily as the more we manage that, we're going to build that back up, and the same idea for this property that we're in right now.
Right.
And why'd you guys decide to do the windows?
So that's a funny question, because when we first, toured the property, the previous tenants had a lot of belongings in the apartment. We were like, oh, I noticed that window may not look good, or that one. Our former place, the windows were fine. It wasn't on our radar to really assess the windows. And this is where we talk about, like, we're new at this, still getting our feet wet, this learning opportunity. We moved in, almost every single window in both units either has a crack in it, there's the seal has been broken and it's all fogged up. Like, the windows are in really bad condition, and that was probably a very unexpected cost for us. But you bet your butt. Can you cut that out?
That's quite all right.
But with the windows, any property that we tour in the future, we're going to make sure to look at every window.
Oh, yeah.
So, I look at it as a mistake, a challenge, but it's going to serve us in the future, because now we'll definitely look for that,
And I'll say this too, in almost kind of a customer service roundabout way. We had some kind of unique opportunities because this was purely off market. We actually interviewed our tenants that we would be inheriting to kind of get a sense for what were some of the struggles they had with the previous owner. And in my mind was, what problems can we solve as the new landlords? And they had a newborn baby on the way, and they felt like their apartment was really, really drafty. And that was something they were really worried about. And so for us, it was, they need to be replaced to begin with. But if that's a point of contention, we don't want to just do the same mistakes maybe the previous owner had done. And if we can retain these great tenants who pay on time, that's another incentive for us to get on that project.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Awesome. So now you've got the 2 properties. How are you managing the tenants? Are you all Excel, paper leases? Are you using any sort of property management software? How you actually collecting money? People dropping off, handfuls of cash, giving you checks? Just fill us in a little bit with how you're managing the tenants and the process here.
Sure. Yeah. So I'll say this, understanding something that's been really transformative for Allie and I in the last 2 years is understanding our roles within our real estate business, and understanding that there are some things that I'm really good at and vice versa, Allie's really good at. And it took a while to understand that. And so Allie is way better in terms of actually like direct interaction with tenants and kind of tenant relations in that regards. Whereas I'm more so like the Excel sheet, property analysis, the finance of the deal. So it's kind of through trial and error where we use a variety of means. As far as rent collection right now, Avail is actually our main resource. We did try Cozy. We still use Cozy for tenant screening. We found from kind of a user interface that rent collection through Cozy, for whatever reason, our tenants were just having a hard time with it.
Yeah.
And our big thing was, we want to make it as easy as possible for them.
Yeah.
And so we found Avail. Avail has been a great service for us in that regards for rent collection. As far as maintenance requests, as of right now, for the most part, if tenants have questions, they can text or call us.
Yeah.
Eventually that might be something that we use a service or whatnot. And then as far as actually property management, Allie and I right now, we self-manage a majority of the time. But over the last 2 years, we've also built out a really strong network of contractors and service providers. So if it's something beyond our scope, we have them in speed dial.
Awesome. So I guess looking back at the second house hack and the first one, I mean, what do you think your biggest win was?
So for us, like I said, one of the biggest things was we wanted to have our housing paid for. And we feel confident that based on the cash flow that we'll have from our first property, after accounting for maintenance, repairs, and CapEx, the cash flow from that should at least cover our portion of the mortgage here. And what that does is that frees up another several $1,000s a year. One thing that I mentioned was that we had 6 figures in student loans. In the last 18 months, we paid off almost $50,000 of that.
Oh, wow.
So going forward, while saving up for another investment property. So kind of looking forward into the new year, we'd love to be student debt free, at the end of that. So it's just, I think one of the biggest wins is seeing the power of having that extra cash and achieving that goal.
Another win that I want to mention too is that we were able to find a property that we love in a neighborhood that we love. And we were able to, change our lifestyle, live below our means, reach our financial goals without greatly sacrificing our quality of living. And that was huge. Initially, I thought, my life is going down the drain. My quality of living is shot. And it doesn't have to be that way. No. And it wasn't that way for our first property or our second property. So that's a win to me. We found these nice little Goldilocks properties where it fit the bill, and we're reaching our goals slowly but surely. So
just persistence and having faith in it.
Yeah.
And now sort of thinking back, if you could go back in time, what was something you would do differently with either of these 2 house hacks?
I think for the second one, I think definitely I would have spaced out closings. Yeah. I probably put a lot of undue stress on us by, basically telling the tenant he could move in and we were still not even packed yet.
Right.
Yeah.
So I definitely would have, not rushed as much.
Yeah.
Awesome. I really appreciate y'all coming on the show and sharing your story. It's been awesome talking with you. But before we let you go, we like to ask all of our guests a final 6 questions. You guys ready for them?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
All right. So number 1, what's your favorite personal finance blog or book or podcast that you've listened or read to recently?
Yeah. So I'm a big fan of Marriage, Kids, and Money with Andy Hill. I also really, really enjoy Afford Anything with Paula Pant.
Yes.
Both of them have been really influential because I like that they do talk about real estate, but they also kind of zoom out a little bit and really highlight the importance of understanding that, real estate isn't necessarily the end goal, but it's a vehicle to what your end goal really is.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Awesome. And then, Allie, do you have a favorite one, or is Josh basically makes you listen to everything he does?
I'd have to defer to Josh on this because he just has a lot of time to kind of devour these episodes, as I said. And I feel like he's kind of my personal podcast curator. I'll be heading home to work and I'm like, hey, can you shoot me a podcast? I'm looking for something like this. He's like, oh, it's Bigger Pockets, episode 234. I'll send it to you right now.
That's awesome.
So it's pretty cool that way. I'm spoiled a little bit with that. So, yeah,
that actually sounds really awesome. All right, then. So the second question, we won't ask Allie. We're just going to ask Josh. What's your favorite real estate related, blog, book, or podcast that you've been listening to recently?
Gosh, real estate specific. So Chad Carson. I am a huge fan of Chad Carson. Actually, I really loved. I was listening to his interview with you earlier today. So Coach Carson is definitely one of my favorites, and one of his, it's episode 3. One of my favorite ones that was really transformative of us is titled, I think it's Go Big by Staying Small or something along those. And he debunks a lot of that misconception that you need to 10x your goals and have hundreds and hundreds of units in order to achieve what you want, which can be really daunting. Mm-hmm. And I love the way Chad, he's very successful, but he also understands what the end goal is, and he does a great way of conveying that.
Yep. Awesome. Yeah. We had Chad Carson on for our kickoff episode for the launch of the show. And he's one of my favorite real estate guys out there for a couple reasons. One, he's just a really cool, very nice guy. And then 2, he's been in real estate since the early 2000s. So he's someone that has that experience. Love it. All right. So question number 3, what's been your favorite travel destination so far?
So I would have to say our California trip.
Yeah.
We were living in our house hack for a year. We saved up to go to California, a deferred honeymoon, because we literally got married, I started a new job, and then we put our offer in on our house, and it was like a whirlwind. So we went to California for 2.5 weeks. We saw the redwoods, we went to Yosemite, we went to Big Sur, all of like those big
awesome.
California highlights. So that was an incredible road trip for us, for sure. Yeah.
Awesome. All right. So number 4, what's next on the travel vacation list? Are you planning any getaway during COVID, or then maybe also part B would be what's after COVID?
So actually, we did have a trip planned this past August that we had to cancel due to COVID. We were really looking to do another road trip to see some national parks in the Southwest. So we were looking like Utah, Arizona, Nevada. We just really enjoy being outside and exploring, all of those incredible sites. So I think when the world is a little more normal, we will for sure pick that up.
Yeah.
Awesome. All right.
Yeah.
So number 5, what is your biggest bucket list item that you have not accomplished yet?
So I think seeing the power of real estate and overall pursuit of financial independence has been really powerful. And last year's 2.5-week trip to California really inspired us to really start traveling a lot more. And so, being able to take an extended trip, maybe even manage, our rentals from, a different part of the country. We have family in Florida, and we have family down in out in California and stuff like that. So it would really be maybe a trip that was not just 2.5 weeks, but maybe, 2.5 or 3 months.
Awesome.
That would be amazing.
Yeah.
Awesome. All right. And then the 6th and final question, what is your favorite life hack? And you each can give us your favorite one.
I feel like earlier you mentioned our car crashing life hack,
Yeah.
which sounds ridiculous, but it was an insane life hack. For me, I'll keep it basic. Like, house hacking has literally changed our life. I think that every single person should house hack at least once.
Yeah.
And that just was so transformative for us. And I'll let you talk about our car crashing house hack.
Yeah.
Not
All right.
us.
So do I need to beep any of this out? Is this something that's going to get you in trouble if you try to replicate
No.
it?
Well, you tell us. We'll share with you.
And, sometimes the universe really just has to slap you inside the head. So I told you before, I had a really bad habit of financing really expensive cars.
Yep.
And I shouldn't have done that. Well, December actually of 2017, I got into a really bad car accident. Luckily, I was okay. But that car was demolished, and that was a $15,000 car, which is, for us, that was expensive. So ended up being totaled. So Allie's car, which was paid off at the time, went to me, but now we had to get Allie a new car. And instead of going out and just getting a $6,000 or $7,000 used car,
We were still pretty modest. We got like a $13,000 used car, but we financed it.
we financed it. And now we had another car payment and another $15,000 in debt at a time when we were really trying to get out of debt. So I was feeling really conflicted with that. Wouldn't you know it, 9 or 10 months later, so October of 2018,
I got rear-ended on the way to work.
Ah.
And we're like, okay, it'll be fine. We'll just do the repairs. No, the car was so messed up that they had to total it. And it was in that moment, I wanted to go right back to my really nice Volkswagen Passat. Like, I was ready to go. I had heated leather seats. Josh was like, Allie, we should do it differently.
Yeah.
We should get a car that we can pay in cash and we don't have to worry about it.
You made the mistake twice, first time finance, got out of it, got lucky, second time finance, and now you got lucky with the crash.
The universe is knocking here.
So, what car does he want but a Toyota Corolla?
Of course.
Reliable. What book is it that you read that like most millionaires drive Toyota
So
Corollas?
it's The Millionaire Next Door. It's one of my favorite books of all time.
So we find a Toyota Corolla for maybe like $7,000. We know we can pay cash for it. It's missing a piece of the front, like it's just a chunk is missing.
Yep.
There's a cigarette burn in the driver's side seat. I'm looking at this car. I kid you, we bought it. We bought the car, by the way. And I cried the entire way home from the car dealership. Literally like ugly crying. And I think of that now and I'm laughing because I'm like, it's a car. It gets me wherever I need to go. And I'm so grateful that we are a household where we have no car debt, that's
Yeah.
awesome. But wow, that was a wild way to get to no car debt. Thank God neither of the accidents were serious.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Wiped out $31,000 in car debt.
Yeah.
Yeah. Crazy. Well,
Yeah.
I don't know
we're
how
bad
repeatable
drivers.
that life hack is, but definitely a good life hack for the two of y'all.
Yeah. Yeah. I wouldn't
Awesome.
advise going out
No,
and
we're
getting
not
car
recommending
accidents.
this, and I swear we're not bad drivers, but it just kind of it happened and it ended up working out for us.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well,
Yeah.
Josh, Allie, thank you for being on the show. If folks want to look you up, where's the best place for them to find you?
So they can find us on Instagram. That is the most accessible, at TheFiCouple, FiCouple. And we are building a website that we are hoping to launch soon for more information. So
Awesome. We'll be sure to put that in the show notes, and everyone go give them a follow and check out more of their story. I just looked at their Instagram again here today, and they actually had some pictures of their latest house hack on there. So thank you both for being on the show. This was a blast talking with you. And again, thank you so much for sharing your story.
Thank you so much.
thank you. Yeah.